Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is our last webinar of 2025. It has been a year, to be sure. But thank you all for joining us, for hanging in with us. I have been excited about this webinar for like 6 months because I first got to see a version of an earlier version of this session at the annual meeting in Atlanta. And the whole idea of what AI is doing to search engine optimization, what it will do to that, what it does to search engine marketing is one of the most interesting things I think we could be thinking about relative to generative and agentic AI right now. So I'm just psyched that Richard and Emily agreed to do this session and we were able to get it on the books here still for 2025. So I will let them do a little bit of intro to explain sort of the differences between SEO and SEM, but just quickly, Richard Traylor handles SEO at PBS, Emily Clark handles SEM. And I guess the last thing I want to do is, as we always do, thank NIDA for their support of Public Media Innovators. And then also want to thank you to David and Amber for always having my back with these things. And some of the times they produce them, some of the times I produce them, but it's always a team effort. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Richard. Everyone, please use the chat to ask questions. And I think, as we said earlier, even if the questions aren't like specifically AI, you've got two search engine pros here available to you. So, it doesn't have to be limited to AI. So anyway, I think we said, Richard, you'd kick it off.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks so much, Chad, and thank you also to David and Amber for inviting us. Glad to have this opportunity to speak with you all. Like Chad said, my name is Richard Traylor. I'm the SEO manager at PBS. I've been with PBS for about a little over 4 years now. I've been doing SEO full time for about 9 years, coming up on 9 years. And specifically within PBS, my role is I'm a subject matter expert on SEO and working to improve the organic visibility and discoverability of public media content on Google from an organic lens, so that non-paid lens. But also, there have been a lot of changes with the integration of AI and other features into search recently. So that's been a big focus of ours as well, is, how is AI going to disrupt the search landscape, and then determining what the impact on public media might be and developing strategies and then sharing that within the system. And I've been joined by my wonderful colleague, Emily Clark. We come together to create a very great and cohesive collaborative search engine marketing strategy. So I will hand it over to her to introduce herself as well before we dive into things.
Thanks, Richard. Hi, everyone. As Richard said, I'm Emily. I'm a manager on the marketing strategy team. I've also been with PBS for about 4 years, and I work on the paid marketing side. So my team tends to focus on media buys and promotional strategies across platforms like Roku or Samsung, Hulu, and of course, Google. So I spend a lot of time optimizing our paid search campaigns and working very closely with Richard to make sure that our organic SEO efforts and our paid search engine marketing efforts work together in an efficient way. And so on our side, paid search campaigns, we like to try to maximize streams for our programming, just to give people a heads up. So in the recent years, we've seen kind of continuous changes to the paid search landscape as Google develops new AI tools to make buying ads easier, which is helpful for us, but obviously makes them a lot of money. It has also made the marketplace quite a bit more crowded and competitive, as I'm sure all of you have seen. And they have also done this, of course, on purpose to make sure that they're ramping up their own ad revenue. Um, so thank you all, and I look forward to talking with you about this.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. Just to give a little bit of context about this presentation, so this is, we consider sort of a continuation of a conversation that started at annual meeting in 2025. Uh, and we want to cover some of the same ground that we covered at annual meeting, just because we know not everyone is able to attend, and not all of the sessions are recorded. So if there is anyone in the chat who was able to attend our session, there may be some content that you've seen before, but we just want to make sure that we're sort of covering the bases for everyone. You'll also see that our slideshow is branded with the official 2025 annual meeting branding, but just wanted to preface by saying we have updated the content of the spreadsheet with new information since then. We just wanted to build off of what we started previously. But I will go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. Okay, awesome. So we introduced ourselves. Uh, so first, I want to start just by going through and highlighting some of the changes that have been made in search, specifically regarding AI over the last couple of years, because things have changed a lot. There have been a lot of new technologies and features that have been added, both in terms of brand new competitors in the space, as well as AI features that are being integrated into traditional search systems. So we just want to start by just running through a list of like what's new, what should you be aware of. But it's 2025. These are the public media innovators. So we have to start by asking ChatGPT to help us out. Oh, no, my video didn't play. Oh, sad. There's a video that will play if you do this presentation on your computer, where basically what I'm doing is I'm prompting ChatGPT to outline new AI features. But the joke, which I sort of spoiled a little bit with my presentation, is that we're going to ask Richard GPT for a better list. Uh, I haven't seen this image in a couple of months now, and it never gets easier to look at. It's always extremely uncanny valley. So let's be done with that and move on for now. So one of the most prominent AI integrations that you've seen, I'm sure everyone has encountered them by now, are Google's AI overviews. You can see a screenshot of one here on the left. And these are AI summaries that are generated by Google, specifically using their Gemini large language model. And these AI summaries appear at the top of search results. And as Emily will talk about later, they're prioritized over both organic and paid results. Uh, and basically, what these AI overviews do is they provide a summarized answer to the user's search query. So you have the AI generated summary, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see there are links to some websites for users that want to learn more. We'll talk a little bit more about tracking later, but I do just want to preface at the beginning that clicks on these links referenced on the right side are considered organic search traffic when it's logged in your Google Analytics property. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But in addition to AI overviews, we also have chatbots, which many of you are also likely very familiar with. ChatGPT is the most popular by far. I think they're up to something like 700 million weekly active users, but there are also a variety of others. You got things like Google's Gemini, DeepSeek, Grok, Claude, probably a dozen more that I can't even think of. So we all know how chatbots work. A user enters a prompt, and then the chatbot provides a response. This could be in the form of text or images, depending on the chatbot or the prompt that you're asking. The chatbot may or may not include links to reference websites. It depends on the service you're using or the level of subscription that you have. We'll talk a little bit more about how chatbots interact in the search landscape later on in this presentation, but I do just want to preface that users tend to use chatbots differently than they use standard search. So what we're seeing is that people tend to ask more complex and longer queries to chatbots than they would to Google. So think about with ChatGPT, you might ask a complicated question like, where can a family of four go on vacation for $5,000 that's within a 5-hour flight from Washington, D.C., for example? That's a relatively complicated query that Google just can't really handle with traditional search. And that's where we're seeing that these AI chatbots tend to excel. And like I said, we'll talk about that more later. So additionally, there's also a new tool that has been introduced over the last year called Google's AI mode. Uh, I would have a video that would play here that shows how it works, but it seems like there might be an issue with the videos. This is live, so you can test this for yourself, actually. But generally, what AI mode is it's a new tab within Google's search engine. So think about how there's separate tabs for Google Images or Google Shopping. AI mode is an additional tab similar to that. And basically, what AI mode does is you search a query, and then AI mode will comb through websites for you. And then it takes all of the information from those websites, and then it summarizes it using AI, and it spits out an easily digestible AI summary. So, what AI mode does is it basically does the Googling for you, and then it just provides you with the raw information that you're looking for. Uh, AI mode works very similarly to Perplexity, if there's anyone that's used that service before, where it basically just does the Googling for you. AI mode is relatively new. It was released publicly earlier this year. Actually, funnily enough, it was released about 2 hours before Emily and I presented at annual meeting, which was great timing. Uh, while this is still a relatively new tool, it doesn't seem that it's really resonated with audiences yet. So in July, Google stated that AI mode had about 100 million monthly active users, which is a lot. 100 million is a lot. But when you consider the scale that a lot of these tech companies are operating at, that's very small. Google handles about 14 to 15 billion queries a day, for context. So it's still sort of finding its footing. Additionally, similar web data shows that about 50% of the users for AI mode used it once and then didn't return. So Google is struggling to get users to use the tool and know about the tool, and then also to retain them and keep them using the tool. But despite these initial statistics, responses from Google's leadership indicates that AI mode is the future of search. This is the direction that Google's leadership wants to be heading in. So this is something that we need to be aware of and need to be cognizant about how this interfaces with our content moving forward. But we'll spend most of the time in this presentation, at least in my portion, discussing AI overviews as they have the most immediate impact on search visibility and search engagement. So third-party studies of AI overviews have shown that they decrease click-through rates for both paid and organic search. So there are just fewer users that are clicking into websites when AI overviews appear. So in Google, in search, there's a concept called zero-click searches, which refer to users searches on Google that don't result in any clicks to a website, and that's either paid or organic. So a user makes a search query and then they don't click into anything. So in zero-click searches, either a user has their question answered by Google directly and they don't need to click through, or they have to refine their search results to see more relevant content. Because AI overviews provide direct answers to users, we're likely to see a decline in search traffic as zero-click searches increase. Because Google is providing that immediate summarized answer, there's just a reduced need to click through to learn more because Google is just showing you directly what you're looking for in a lot of circumstances. Uh, we do want to note that AI overviews don't appear everywhere, but they do appear more frequently in search than they did even just a few months ago. In addition to the increased prevalence of AI overviews, they're also getting more sophisticated. So when we presented at annual meeting, it was primarily just text content that was appearing in AI overviews, but we've recently seen that AI overviews are now embedding video content directly within the summary. So you may have a text description, and then there may be an embedded video that appears, but that's going to depend on the search query. I will add to that because public media, we operate very much in the video space. AI overviews are currently only embedding content from YouTube, from what we've seen so far. We have done investigations into this, and there appears to be no technical blockers preventing Google from embedding the PBS video player or other video players. So it appears at the moment that they're just preferring resources from YouTube, but we may need to hear if there's additional details specifically from Google about that, like maybe structured data that we can apply that will make our content eligible. So this clearly has very major implications for the public media system. So it's something that we're continuing to monitor at PBS, and we can provide updates and guidance on that in the future as we learn more. So all of the data that I've shared so far has been from third-party organizations, and while it's good for understanding the broader industry, that may not necessarily match the impact on public media. So I want to share the results of an internal analysis that we did. Caveat is that this analysis was from this spring, so uh, it's a little bit older at this point, but we think the results of this analysis are still relevant, so we still wanted to share. And this analysis was intended to determine how PBS.org was being referenced in AI overviews, and then what the implications of that mean for how AI overviews might impact engagement in search. So at the time of this analysis, PBS.org was referenced in about 36,000 AI overviews. This was roughly comparable to the number of references to NPR.org and CNN.com, so very strong. And it was much, much higher than the number of references we were seeing for traditional streaming sites like Hulu or Disney Plus or Peacock. The search queries that triggered an AI overview that referenced PBS.org tended to be informational, such as the search query, "What is the biggest tsunami ever recorded?" More importantly, though, about 95% of the AI overviews that linked to PBS.org linked to an article or another text-based page. So these are pages that are primarily on what we call our producer sites, which are sites that are produced and managed by presenting stations. So think of the sites for PBS News or Masterpiece or Nova or Antiques Roadshow. These producer sites are excellent at generating organic search traffic and engaging both new and existing audiences, but they're made up of a lot of articles which don't tend to convert strongly to video streams or passport signups. So our ultimate takeaway from this analysis was that while organic search traffic may decline as a result of AI overviews, this isn't likely to impact streaming or passport signups or other core KPIs, as AI overviews are mostly impacting the informational supporting article content at the moment. However, I will say that this analysis was exclusive to the PBS.org domain, so we can't promise that this is going to be the same for all stations, and AI overviews continue to evolve. This didn't include information about embedded video, so the situation may have changed. But it's at least a better indicator of what the impact might be than some of the third-party studies that we've gone through. But with that, before I transition to handing it over to Emily, I'll pause there in case there were any urgent questions in the chat that we should address.
Yes, Richard, it looks like we have a few. From Priyanka, it says, in relation to this slide, AI overviews may not have an immediate impact on streaming, but is it fair to say that as organic search traffic declines, the visibility and awareness of our sites or brands will have an impact on streaming and other KPIs?
That's a really great point. Yes, probably. It's fair to say that as organic search traffic declines, the visibility and awareness probably. Uh, that is, it just gets a little bit hard to track at that point. What we tend to see is um, then you're sort of talking about like the funnel as a whole, as opposed to just sort of like that immediate session that follows an organic search click. And that's just harder to track. Uh, I think that's something that we're still sort of trying to understand is, what's the brand awareness and the brand like piece of this? Because there's certainly something to be said about that. And it's still just a little unclear. As we'll talk about later, there's just not a lot of transparency from Google or a lot of these AI companies with how they're displaying our content in these AI summaries, especially outside of the like traditional Google search ecosystem. So I think this is something we'll be focusing a lot more on as like tools are created that are better at tracking this.
I'll also say, Richard, just from looking at like what other people have been doing and such to try to rank for AI overviews, I think now it's really accepted that appearing in AI overviews is a great brand awareness tool. So while it is disappointing that, site traffic is lower, people are saying that by appearing for AI overviews, you are establishing your brand. So it continues to be important to try to format your website and articles to appear in those AI overviews, which Richard will get into later on about how SEO and AI optimizations often coincide. But although it may seem like we're losing traffic, I think PBS kind of has like a very trusted brand that people are looking for that content. It's helpful when we do appear in those AI overviews because people tend to remember us better.
Yeah, I will say Mark made a comment that is a much more succinct and better explanation to Priyanka's question than I had. So thank you, Mark, for covering for me. That was an excellent summary. And then there were a couple other questions. Sorry, I just pulled up the chat. Dave asked if we can share the methods. I'll respond to you. I'll add a response while Emily is talking. I'll share an email address where we can talk more about that. And then Chad asked, how do you see where AI overviews link to your site? Currently, that's not available in Google Analytics. We pay for a third-party tool called Ahrefs, and I'll have a slide on this later. Uh, but we use these third-party tracking tools, these third-party SEO tools. They basically scrape Google search results, so they have information about where AI overviews appear and what websites are being ranked, which is what we primarily use for these types of analyses.
Exactly. And I'll even say, I'll talk about this a little later, but even on the paid side, we pay for ads and supposedly they are appearing, above or below or within AI overviews. And Google does not tell us this information either. They have still not rolled out any transparency into where these ads are now appearing versus just plain search. It's all kind of grouped into the same category. So they are, definitely trying to weigh the benefits of revealing how much of your traffic is going to an AI overview versus not, even on the ad side. And they're hoping actually that you'll double bid on that keyword just so that you are sure that you're appearing above, below, within, and all of that. So we'll get into a little bit more detail on some of the AI tools that Google's using, but it's obviously disappointing as well that even when you pay for it, they're not showing you how exactly you're ranking.
And that is a good transition, Emily, if you want to take it away.
Yes, definitely. So hi everyone. In this section, I'll now be pivoting toward how AI features are changing the paid search landscape specifically. We'll dive into how AI overviews affect search ad performance and how to create meaningful paid search ads for websites with enhanced AI tools in Google's ad suites. I will caveat that at PBS, our paid search goal is to increase video streams, so this strategy focuses on optimizing for streaming KPIs. Next slide, please. Great. So Google introduced AI overviews in 2024, as I'm sure you all saw and watched, perhaps weeping. They rolled them out in beta mode to learn quickly how people interact with the new feature. They have become, I would say, increasingly more accurate and helpful to users than when they originally were rolled out. Obviously, there are still some caveats to this. I believe there was a study that said like 30% of AI overview information is inaccurate. So obviously, it's becoming more useful and users are relying on them more for information, but there is still a lot of quirks that Google needs to work out to make sure that the right information is being shown. However, with the increased usage and people relying on AI overviews more heavily, it's no surprise that they are here to stay. They have become increasingly more common, as Richard mentioned, and are an essential factor in where your paid search ads are going to appear. So currently, ads appear with AI overviews 87% of the time. This means that almost all ads will appear simultaneously with an AI overview, either above, below, or in the AI overview. And again, Google will not tell you exactly where they are appearing. Google says the integration of ads with AI overviews is designed to enhance the user experience by connecting them with relevant products or services. However, this also means that users are now seeing AI overviews above your ads. So while you may still be paying for that top of the page placement, your ad has most likely lost a significant amount of real estate and user attention. So AI overviews hover around 4,300 characters on average, and that means 84% of the time they cover more than half of the search result page. With so much of the page swallowed by these overviews, the likelihood of your ad getting seen, nevertheless clicked on, does drop significantly. In the past 6 months, on average, studies have shown that AI overviews significantly eat away at paid traffic. We saw in May that there was an estimated 25% CTR drop when AI summaries are shown above ads. Now there is a 68% CTR drop as people become more accustomed to AI overviews, and Google has increased the amount of time when AI overviews appear. However, this is not necessarily the case for all ads. And as I go into the PBS strategy, we have actually seen an increased number of clicks and conversions rather than a decrease because of how we're setting up our ads, as well as just the wealth of programming that PBS has published in the past 6 months with AMREV and everything. So I'll go more into that. And to kind of talk about that, we have also seen a divide in AI overviews appearing for branded versus non-branded search queries. So for context, non-branded search queries are searches that do not include a specific company or product name. For PBS, these would be queries that do not include the word PBS, your local station name, or a show title like All Creatures Great and Small. Non-branded terms tend to be generic terms like streaming service, educational content, best period dramas, or science documentaries. So for these non-branded queries, 25% of the time, Google shows an AI overview. With that, Google has not only increased the competition for your content to be seen among other sites, but you're now competing with Google itself. So while AI overviews may pose a new challenge for your ads and content to appear first on the page, we do have some ways to combat this. In these screenshots, you see two examples of people searching for the American Revolution. In the first screenshot, the query is simply watch American Revolution. This search generates one of our sponsored ads right at the top of the page. We are the first result, and it is likely that a user will click on us because we are the immediate answer to their query. In the second screenshot, the query changes to when is PBS American Revolution? This query generates an AI overview. Google summarizes when American Revolution premieres on PBS and specifics about the schedule. So why did these two queries provide very different results? This is due to the type of question that the user has inputted. AI overviews tend to appear for informational, how-to, and exploratory searches. So basically when a user is looking for a quick and comprehensive answer rather than a navigational click. With this in mind, you can actually frame your paid search strategy based on when you know an AI overview will appear. So why waste money bidding on a query where your station shows up halfway down the page? Why not maximize your budget for searches where your station appears as the first result? The best time to use search ads tends to be for branded queries. So like in the previous example, people simply searching for a show title, your local station, or some kind of branded benefit will typically generate your search ad to appear at the top of the page. For example, bidding on keywords like PBS Big Cats 24/7 or PBS Passport. AI overviews also appear less frequently for local searches. They only appear for 8% of local queries versus 20% for non-local searches. And this is a huge advantage to stations where users might be searching for local TV or local news or information about your station or state. So I would recommend leaning into your local queries and ranking top of the page for those. Finally, navigational queries, or where someone is trying to find where to do something, tends to bring up paid ads rather than AI overview. This is because people want a one-button click to the answer to their query, rather than reading a very long explanation on then how to find that button. So bidding on something like download the PBS app or donate to PBS Passport should bring up a search ad if you are bidding on those types of keywords. While it sometimes seems counterintuitive to bid on your own keywords, it's actually important to maintain your station's share of voice in search. Share of voice is basically the percentage of time your brand or station is appearing when people are searching for you. On a national level, we often bid on branded keywords for paid ads, like PBS Wolf Hall, PBS American Revolution, Ken Burns, because we want to be the top paid and organic search result. We don't want competitors swooping in and stealing our traffic. We don't want our brand diluted by someone else appearing. We want to be the only place people think of when they search for our content. And now that we have laid out kind of a general strategy on how your ads can appear more frequently in results, let's discuss how to optimize your search ads using AI tools. Google offers three standard types of AI tools to improve your search ad performance now: data-powered targeting, generative AI for ads, and something very, very, well, somewhat new called AI Max expansions that they've rolled out over the past few months. These three tools will actually maximize your results while minimizing the amount of time you have to spend creating an effective ad. Data-powered targeting will allow you to show more relevant messaging to the right people. Generative AI will allow you to create optimized search keywords, copy, and images from your station's website's link. And then AI Max expansions kind of acts as an additional optimization layer within your search ads. It expands your keyword reach by finding more broad matched longer tail keywords continuously throughout your campaign. So not just in that initial setup period. And then it will send users to the best landing page for their search queries. I'll dive more specifically into these tools now so we can look at them. So as mentioned, data-powered targeting is an excellent way to ensure your ads reach people who actually want to digest your content. Rather than paying for your ads to be seen by everyone, data-powered targeting allows your ads to be seen by highly engaged audiences. To do this, you can import Google Analytics 4 key events to your Google Ads account. This is very highly recommended by Google so that you can serve ads based on conversion performance rather than just impressions or clicks. How this works is you connect your GA4 account to Google Ads and simply select a key event to import. It should take probably less than 5 minutes if you have that connection set up. For example, this key event could be streams or become a member clicks. By adding these goals to your campaigns, Google will serve your ads to people who are more likely to watch your station's content rather than people who may click on your ad and then immediately bounce. After you have figured out the data targeting portion you want to use in search ads, you can now create the search ad itself. Google continues to make this easier and easier. You can use AI-generated creative to do keyword research, write ad headlines and descriptions, and find images all from one link. All you have to do is start a campaign, input your landing page URL, and Google will find keywords based on your page's SEO optimization. Based on that keyword list and your landing page, Google will then offer auto-generated headlines and descriptions and identify images on that web page from your ad that you can simply accept, and it will include in the ad itself. It will then generate a preview of what your ad looks like based on everything it has created. So it makes it very, very easy for you to spend. And again, it will have done all of this from simply copying your station's landing page and pasting it into the dashboard. Again, I will caveat you will always want to review what Google has created because it may be grabbing information that you do not want. However, because it's so easy, you no longer have to do a ton of research and copywriting and image finding. And it has also given you a hint into how Google is reading your landing pages in general. So if you were to input a Ken Burns documentary page and it's suddenly giving you headlines for Great American Recipe, then you might want to reevaluate that Ken Burns page and see why Google isn't recognizing your show content. It could indicate further optimizations are required and gives you that additional insight into how Google is indexing your pages. Finally, I wanted to share a new feature that Google has recently rolled out called AI Max for search ads. This is an AI Max enhancement, which you can toggle on for new search ads or even existing search ads. It's technically still in beta mode, but I believe it has been rolled out across all accounts. So you are definitely able to try this if you have a Google Ads account. The goal is to expand your campaign's reach and capture search intent you might otherwise have missed. It uses Google's AI algorithm to find those additional broad match queries beyond your existing keywords. And instead of limiting ads to just your chosen keywords, it will reach a broader set of relevant queries that are potentially more difficult to find if you're using a tool or something like that. It's called like broad match logic or keyword list matching. just simply finding those keywords based on the context of your ads, landing pages, URLs, and user intent. It will then recommend auto-generated copy, which, as we discussed, it already kind of did. However, it is labeling this as an additional benefit just because, again, as those keywords are continuously added into your campaign as it runs, it's trying to make sure that it's also presenting relevant headlines for those newer keywords. And then instead of always sending users to a fixed landing page, AI Max can automatically choose from your entire website's pages the one that's most relevant to your user's query. The goal is that this will help match intent better, so that you can have fewer campaigns, but still have improved conversions. So if you are running a drama campaign and AI Max is finding all drama show keywords on PBS, they're going to find keywords that are relevant to Miss Scarlet, All Creatures, Sanditon, etc. And instead of just sending people to that drama explore page, it's actually going to direct them to a specific show page for that search. So it will show them the All Creatures page rather than the drama explore page. However, with all of this said, and it sounds really great and can be really helpful, we have been experimenting with this and are very aware that we need to monitor it closely. We've seen great results. We've seen increased conversions and impressions. However, it does require a lot of time because there was a bit of a learning curve as it tried to figure out what exactly our campaign was optimizing toward. So we launched the AI Max feature in our drama campaign, and Google's AI began to index all PBS popular keywords across the entire site rather than just finding keywords that were related to dramas. So we saw a bunch of generic PBS keywords grouping in that drama campaign, and even keywords like Ken Burns documentaries, and Ken Burns American Revolution. And obviously, this would be a terrible experience for someone who is looking to watch a historical documentary, clicking on the ad, and then being routed to the PBS drama page. So through that, we had to extensively go through that generated keyword list and begin adding negative keywords and URLs that we did not want to show in our AI Max ad. After we kind of consistently did this for a week or so, the algorithm began to learn and understand a lot better what we really wanted. And then it started to find those longer tail keywords that we wouldn't have thought of, like, say, TV detectives in a crime series or a period drama set in the UK, and even longer ones rather than just recommending PBS app or science documentary or something like that. So with all of that said, if you would like to test the AI Max feature with your search ads, just please make sure you are checking the keyword list routinely to ensure that you aren't appearing for irrelevant searches. As I'm sure you all know, AI can be very helpful, but it does not replace humans. It still needs a lot of supervision. And with that said, I would always recommend testing some of these new tools if you do have a little bit of budget. But obviously, kind of the tried and true search ads at the moment appear to be still worthwhile spending on. So before I shift back to the organic strategy for Richard, I'll check to see if we have any questions.
Yeah, there was one from Dave. Do you know how Google decides if your search is considered a local search?
That's a good question. So, we tend to do this based on, I think it's probably just your location. So Google can read basically where your website is located, as well as indexes your page to see where your address is and all of that. And you can then target local communities based on that, down to the zip code level. And so when your ad appears and you're bidding on keywords that were within that local domain, so if it was Nebraska and you were bidding on, Nebraska local TV or something, and it saw you were in Nebraska running that ad, it would consider that a local search. Now, I don't know like if Google has more high wire techniques where they're trying to figure that out, but I think it is largely just based on the location of your keyword and if that is like considered a place that's versus a national keyword, if that's helpful.
I can actually speak to
Yeah.
that a little bit more of the like technical logic. So Google understands certain things as what we call entities, and there can be national or local sort of designations applied to those. So, for example, Google understands that PBS News is an entity, and that can be related to other entities like Judy Woodruff. Uh, there can be categories or things that are applied to that. So, for example, Google is smart enough to know that PBS News is uh, a national organization. It's a national entity, and then by that same logic, it's able to distinguish what might be considered local entities. The only caveat there is sometimes it can depend just because there may be multiple entities with the same name. So, for example, one that's come up a few times, especially where I live, is Nova. If you search for Nova, like obviously there's the PBS show Nova, but we also live in Northern Virginia, which is often shortened to Nova. So it can sort of be a little like weird sometimes with the designation and what results you might see. And then a question from Tim. Google runs the Google Ad Grant program, which provides qualifying nonprofits up to 10K per month in search ad credits. Uh, Google Ad accounts are separate from paid Google accounts and must follow. Yeah, Emily, you're more equipped to, to speak to this one
Yeah,
than I
I
am.
think this is a shout out from Tim about the Google Ad Grant program, which is a very cool program that Google runs, and it does provide that 10K per month. As Tim said, it does have very specific requirements that websites have to meet, that paid accounts do not have to meet. So if you do join that program, it is essential that you go through several of their steps. I also work with stations on their Google Ad Grant program, so I'm happy to talk more about this later or send any follow-up, any information if people have questions on it. Are there any limitations on using those funds for AI SEM? There are not. For AI Max, you can run AI Max ads within your Google Grant account. They've rolled that out and we have actually tested it. Again, the grant is a great program, but I will say that performance is always lower than if you're actually paying for ads due to a lot of their restrictions around keywords and competitor keywords and such like that. But yes, you can try it out. And that's where we first tried it out because it is free funds. So why not see how it works without our own money?
Got to test with the free Google bucks.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emily. This next portion of our presentation was going to get a little bit more into the tactical side of the SEO things with how you can target AI overviews and what SEO looks like in sort of the AI space. We're running a little bit short on time, so I might fly through this a little bit quickly. But I will say we do have a QR code and a bit.ly link at the end of this presentation where you can download a bunch of our resources which has a link to the slide deck as well as a transcript, which uh, highly recommend digging into that if you want to get a little bit deeper into the tactical side of things. But just to keep things moving, uh, first of all, so how to rank in AI overviews. I know we've talked a lot about the tactics and how AI overviews appear in things, but what do you do if you actually want to rank in an AI overview? Well, what we found generally is that if you want to rank in an AI overview, you just need to rank highly in search. There was a study published that found that 80% of the links that were featured in AI overviews also ranked on page one of Google. And what we found generally is that AI or answer engine optimization, all of these new sort of buzzword jargony things tend to match very closely with traditional SEO tactics. So what we found generally is that if you want to appear highly in AI content, just do SEO for now, at least. But why would you want to target AI overviews if we know that they negatively impact organic and paid click-through rates? Well, there's a couple different reasons. I think one of the main reasons is if it's associated with your brand, like in this case, Antiques Roadshow locations. That's something that clearly you want to make sure that the content is correct and also have a link for those people that want to click through to secure a ticket. For example, you want to make sure that they're going to the right place. So there are some circumstances where it would be valuable to target AI overviews. So going back to one of Chad's questions earlier with how to track AI overviews. So unfortunately, there's no way to track AI overviews within Google Analytics or Google Search Console. Traffic to your website from these features is counted as organic search traffic. There's just no way to segment it out to see like X% of traffic to your website from organic search is coming from AI overviews versus traditional search. There's no way to do that, unfortunately. However, you can track where AI overviews appear, but you do have to pay for a third-party tool. The one that we use at PBS is called Ahrefs. I am an Ahrefs stan, highly recommend, but I know, of course, not everyone has budget available for these third-party tools. There are two other ones, SEMrush and Moz Pro, that both have these features, and we have links in our deck if you want to look into them yourselves. So again, flying through some of the tactics. One of the things that's really essential when it comes to doing SEO in the current era is going to be conducting keyword research. And just echoing what Emily talked about before, it's really important to distinguish between those branded and those non-branded keywords. So we like to think about branded keywords as sort of doing defense in the SEO side of things. So these are people that are already aware of your content, already interested in your content, and you just want to make sure that they can get to the right place. This is also typically going to be the people that are going to convert to things like passport signups or streaming at a higher rate. And those non-branded keywords tend to be a little bit more of the offensive, like how do you reach new audiences that may not be familiar with your content? So that could be people searching something like British period dramas or local news, for example. Something else that's really important when we think about doing SEO in this current era is search intent. And that's the underlying thing that a user wants to do when they're searching on Google or one of these new AI tools. Search intent, at least in the classical Google search space, tends to have four main intents. So there's those informational intents. So someone has a question that they want to answer. And this is what we know is being the hardest hit at the moment by these AI overviews. These are primarily targeting these informational search queries. Commercial is a user that wants to do an action. So they want to stream Leonardo da Vinci or sign up for Passport. There's an action that they want to take. This is another really important one, especially in the marketing space where you want to get users that will convert. Additionally, we have navigational, which is a user that's looking for a specific page. And then there's transactional, so a user that wants to make a transaction. It's just really important to think about user intent when you're optimizing for search because you want to be matching the right user intent with the right page. So for example, if someone's searching like, what do camels eat? You don't want to give them like, hey, here's an hour-long nature documentary because they just want like a short little snippet of text, probably, as opposed to digging through like a full documentary. You're just going to provide a better user experience to your users by thinking about search intent, which is going to help your search profile overall. But the biggest tactic that we really want to hammer home is maximizing engagement. So thinking about your site KPIs and your business goals when you're creating web content and when you're optimizing for search. Because if you're generating a lot of traffic, it's all sort of a moot point if users don't have a way to meaningfully convert to whatever KPI is important to your business. So we always highly recommend doing things like embedding short form video into blogs and articles, plugging your newsletter CTAs, incorporating passport messaging, linking to related content. And again, this can also tie back to search intent because you want to think about what the search intent the user has when they're landing on the page and think about what action they may be willing to take. Like a user reading an article may not be ready to pull the trigger on donating, but they may be interested in watching some short form video. So think about what action they may be willing to take and try to find ways to incorporate that where you can. But before we get into the Q&A, Emily and I ended our annual meeting presentation by giving some predictions. And things have changed a lot since May, since annual meeting. So we wanted to give a little bit of an update of what our predictions were then, and then what's happened in the last few months since.
Yes. So our first prediction was we predicted ads will begin to appear more frequently within AI overviews. This is true. We have seen that they have begun to appear more frequently. And you can also see this in Google's revenue stream. In Q3, Google made over $56 billion, a 14% increase from the previous year simply from search. These overviews are providing a new avenue for Google to monetize its search positioning and AI features. Um, and now you can see actually that text and shopping ads from existing search, shopping, and performance max campaigns are eligible to show within AI overviews. I believe originally it was mostly just an e-commerce feed that was appearing in AI overviews, but it has extended a bit, even though e-commerce is still dominating. And studies estimate that ads appear within AI overviews 13 to 20% of the time now. Um, However, you can't directly do that. You can't directly target ad placement within AI overviews, as we mentioned, and Google still does not provide any reporting specifically on when your ads are appearing in AI overviews, even if you're trying to bid across search and AI. Everything is just grouped under the same ad performance. And this kind of brings us to our second prediction that Google will begin sharing engagement data on AI overviews and Google Ads. This has not happened yet. This prediction has not come true. Hopefully, it will come true since everyone is spending and trying to understand more how AI overviews is affecting their actual traffic. I will say we've spoken to some of our Google reps, and they're claiming that people are actually using search more with AI overviews because they read the overview and then search something mentioned in that overview. However, even though they may be spending time on Google, there is no data to suggest that people are then clicking through to publisher websites rather than just reading more AI overviews. They're continuing to gatekeep this information.
Our third prediction was that Google will begin integrating AI into other features within Google search. And this is another one that has come true. So if you're Googling, you'll probably see things like, there's going to be the maps feature, images. A lot of times there are related questions. And a lot of these related questions, especially in other features like text features that appeared in Google search results, used to pull content directly from websites. And what we've seen over the last couple of months is increasingly these are using AI generated responses. So what this means ultimately is there are just fewer and fewer places within the Google search ecosystem that are pulling content from websites. It's increasingly pulling content from AI. Continued proliferation of zero-click searches. This was true then and is still true now, as there's just more AI summary content within search. There's just going to be fewer and fewer clicks. So it becomes really important that we are aware of what's going on, excuse me, and we take a careful approach to optimizing for search. And our last prediction, our spiciest prediction, was that Google would lose market share as users would begin migrating to other AI platforms. This has not appeared to have come true, but I think it takes a little bit of reconfiguring in our brains of what market share looks like in the search landscape. Because traditionally, it was Google versus Bing versus Yahoo and the other like really small ones, and a user used one search engine and not the other. With these new AI tools and this new ecosystem that we're in, that's not really the case. I think what's more likely to happen is that users are going to be using multiple search tools, but for different purposes. So they're still going to be using Google when they want to find a page on a website, but they're going to be turning to something like ChatGPT when they want to ask a more complicated query, or they're turning to YouTube, or they're turning to TikTok. People are just going to migrate to different platforms for different needs. So Google will never go away, but I think we'll see a sort of a diversification within search. But with that, I'll flip over to our QR code slide and I've been following along as the chat's been popping off. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in, but uh, can take a look at some of the questions.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Emily.
Oh, I was just going to say I think there's a lot of good discussion about
Yeah.
Google Ad Grant Program and then Moz Pro on how to sign up. I believe the next question was I see GPT bot and Perplexity bot on the PBS.org disallow list. I'm wondering if you can talk a little more about that and if you've taken any other steps in this direction.
That's a really good question. That was a decision that was made at PBS um, early on when these bots were sort of first introduced. Uh, I will say the decisions to block these bots is like several steps above my pay grade. So I can't comment too much on that just because I don't want to speak for the organization. But I think that's a very robust discussion that needs to happen within the system as a whole. But sorry, I can't really provide too much detail there.
Can I jump in on that one
Yeah,
just real fast?
yeah.
And I totally respect that you got to manage up with an answer like that. We've been having this kind of discussion between the stations and at the national level for a couple of years. This was a question that came up at the Grand Rapids NEDA meeting a couple of years back, with people asking about what gets blocked and what doesn't. And obviously, every station has to kind of make its own decision. Every organization decides what they want to let in or not. But I believe it is a correct statement, is it not, that Google can't be blocked because if you block Google's AI from crawling you, you will kill your search. You just won't even show up in search. Is that a correct assertion?
For the most part, but Google is nice because they at least have different bots for different things. So there is a separate bot specifically for their AI systems. Uh, it's also a little bit difficult because there's a technology called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, where basically these tools can go back to a search index and pull content from that without having to directly scrape your site. So currently, what we're doing is we're preventing these bots from scraping our content to use to train their AI models on. It's also extra complicated because there's been a lot of indication that these AI systems are not respecting that anyway, and like they're spoofing their themselves to like circumvent that blocking. So a lot that could be a whole separate hour-long conversation, but it's complicated.
And I see Anais has chimed in the chat saying that there'll be an update coming at some point. So she's got your back. Um, Emily, you want to keep uh, ticking through some of the questions?
Oh, sure,
Uh,
definitely.
we're at the top of the hour, but just to let everyone who's sticking with us know, we're going to go through and try to answer everything before we wrap. Sometimes we go long. I think this is one we thought we'd go long on, and it looks like we will. So anyway, Emily, back to you.
Definitely. So the next question is from Jeff. Is there any indication on whether or when AI overview and AI mode will become the default search experience? I think Richard, you kind of mentioned that. I think the Google's goal is that AI mode will become the default search experience, even though not a lot of people are currently using it. So I think we'll see, and I imagine it very much depends on monetization for Google. If they can figure out how to monetize AI mode, then I'm sure they will sink more teeth into how to get people to actually use it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Google, their public policy has indicated that AI mode or something like it will be sort of the default at some point. They haven't indicated when that would happen. But to Emily's point, I think monetization really is the key. The vast majority of Google's revenue comes from search ads, and they make a lot of money. I think Emily said this yesterday,
56.
Q3 was their best quarter ever. They made over $100 billion in one quarter. It was like $66 billion from search ads alone. So they really need to figure out what the monetization scheme looks like for these new features before they can make that switch. But
Throw
soon.
a little more context in there. I was at a session on Google search at South by Southwest maybe 10 years ago, and they were talking about how the goal ultimately at that point, their goal with Google was to be able to answer your questions or deliver you a result before you even could complete the thought, which seemed like a very lofty goal. But like pretty soon after that's when you started seeing predictive text. So you started typing and then the question would start autofilling on the side. And so this is to me just very much in line with that intent that has been a very long-standing intent on Google's part to really get, as you said earlier, Richard, at intention. Um, oh,
Great.
what else we got?
Um, then from Lynn, how can we boost local content visibility in a zero-click and AI overview environment? How do we get our content seen if no one is looking? It's a good question.
Yeah, I can take a stab at this one. I will say from what we've seen, zero click searches are not sort of an everywhere sort of thing. Like, not every search will be a zero click search. I think there are certain types, like especially the informational stuff, that is very at risk of moving into sort of a zero click space. Uh, so trying to find the niches that still can get a click, and then focusing there. We do a lot of analysis of the projects that we do, and trying to focus on like what's still working, and then really trying to lean heavily into that where we can. So I think looking back and doing a lot of analysis of like, we did this is we're seeing a lot of AI overviews and the responses. We're not getting the clicks that we're looking for. Maybe let's pivot and try something new. Or like, hey, we're still getting a lot of engagement here, even if there's AI overviews that are appearing, trying to find ways to lean into that where possible. I will say news is a sector that we have seen has been relatively stable given AI overviews, because Google really hedges their bets when it comes to what they call your money, your life queries. So people searching things that are like really sensitive and could like adversely impact people's lives. Uh, they're more hesitant to show AI results there because they just don't really want to get things wrong. Uh, so news is a space where we've seen AI has been less prevalent, so that can be an opportunity because I know there's a lot of stations that operate in the local news space as well.
We've talked about this, the three of us, when we were doing pre-production, but when like the question about getting local content to show up, it, there's a distinction between a tune-in strategy, right? And like, do you want to get your local documentary or a podcast if you're coming at us from the radio side, perhaps, in front of folks versus, making sure that facts from an important local news story uh, don't get, lost because they're not getting optimized for AI. Could you maybe talk a little just about the distinction between those two?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think uh, we tend to focus a lot on the tune-in side of things. That's just from our leadership where we've seen a huge focus. I think what will be interesting and what sort of to Emily's point from the presentation, uh, we're still waiting from a lot of these tools to start getting data about how people are using them. And I think what would be interesting is if they come up with some metrics that are less click focused and more in that like awareness, like visibility sort of focus, like almost a CPM style metric as opposed to like a click driven style of focus, which I think can speak to some of like the lighter touch, like how you're influencing the conversation versus like just how you're appearing and then converting to a click. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I think that potentially could sort of elucidate some of the gaps that we're seeing in analysis and sort of speak to some of the like more mission driven focus of PBS of like trying to create educational content and sort of be a trustworthy space for information.
Exactly. And I think that goes back to how AI overviews are almost like an awareness play now, since it's kind of inevitable that, more and more of these will be created. It is really essential to be appearing in AI overviews with certain information. And oftentimes it's just being more of that trusted brand and optimizing for SEO, indexing there. So if you can appear within that AI overview and people are reading your content, obviously the goal would be for eventually for them to get back to your website, so that they could kind of read the, full article or watch the full video.
To Lynn Hatter, I'll say, like, this is definitely not the last time we're going to be talking about this topic, and I think there are going to be nuances that, as a body of best practices develop with some professionalism around this. Not that y'all are professional, but like, it's just early days. We're not even at version 0.5 with some of this stuff. Like that we'll keep talking about this, and I would expect this to be, a topic here, but in maybe some of the other kind of interest groups. Let's jump. I'm going to jump to the other Lynn Valicat's question real quick here. Where can we find this disallow list to make sure staff know this in addition to station zone policies? Must be in reference to Bijan's question.
This is another one where this also, I think it's just difficult to talk about the disallow policy because that's sort of in the policy sphere. That's like, again, not really something that Emily and I are making policy on. So I would say that this is something we can follow up with PBS leadership to try and get some more clarity that's available at stations of like what our policy is and reasoning behind that. But I'm just hesitant to speak on that directly ourselves.
Sure. I hear you on that. And I actually didn't know there was a public disallow list until I saw Bijan's question. So, but I think Annie said she'd do some follow up with some of that. So, Lynn, I think you're on the record with that one. Jump real back to Christian Knudsen. What do you think about the idea that these findings on impacts of AI overviews might suggest that the comparative audience generating value of video content is increasing in comparison to text-driven content? Any thoughts on that, guys?
I think that's a good call. I mean, we've just seen that AI overviews have started to add YouTube video. Well, obviously they're prioritizing YouTube because it's a Google entity. The fact that they're adding those videos now means that there's definitely value in it. And we see on like social platforms, TikTok has become kind of the search engine for Gen Z, right? And so as people become more accustomed to vertical video and videos to learn things, I hope that PBS will also become kind of like that guiding light toward trusted, safe content because we have so much video that people can watch easily.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I'm scrolling, so I'm actually seeing Bijan actually said like he just checks the robots.txt file, which is something some of you know how to do, and some of like I'm not sure I would be able to actually figure that it out, but he's put the URL in there, so there you go. So you can kind of see that too. Let's see, still going, and we will get through all of these, if nothing else, for the recording. So if you do need to dump off, get the answers in here, and you'll be able to kind of scroll and watch later. Has PBS done research on SEO and AI in other search engines besides Google? And I'll just kind of augment a little bit and say, like, also what about AI browsers, like what OpenAI is rolling out, and the lines definitely are blurring on a number of fronts here.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have not really done much research into traditional search engines other than Google. Bing is the number two. But for PBS.org, I think the stat for 2024 at least was like 93% of our organic search traffic was coming from Google. Uh, and what I found, not necessarily at PBS.org or at PBS, but in previous roles, is that uh, Bing and other search engines tended to follow Google in a lot of their guidance and optimization strategies. So we're focusing on Google mostly because they're the biggest one and it has the biggest impact, and we just have minimal resources, to be honest. So we're focusing on number one. Uh, to your point, Chad, about some of the alternate browsers, or even just like chatbots themselves as sort of like a search engine. We've done a little bit of preliminary research into ChatGPT, again, ChatGPT being the biggest one. There are tools out there. We've met with a couple of tools that can, that focus on optimizing for ChatGPT or these other LLMs. Profound is the biggest one that we spoke to. To be honest, they're just very expensive, and we found that at this point, at least, the ROI in terms of traffic and streams and conversions is still relatively low. So I think it's something that we're looking to do some like manual analysis ourselves and then sort of determining from there if it's worth looking into a tool at a later date. So it's still early days. We haven't really done much research into the browser side of things, but I think that would be good to do at least from like a UX like accessibility sort of perspective, just to like, hey, let's download them and make sure that all of our content loads in a correct way. Uh, but yes, ChatGPT a little bit, other search engines not so much, and browsers probably on the horizon at some point.
Not that we needed a reason to get back together to discuss this, but it seems like we'll have them. I can tell folks that just from a Nebraska standpoint, I can see referral traffic coming to us from ChatGPT now, probably a few hundred a month, but the line is trending up. And so I don't think it's going to go down from there. A perplexity, maybe a dozen a month. It's low. But you could go and if you have access to your analytics for your site, you can kind of go and begin to just track those so you can get a sense, kind of like we used to do with mobile back in the day, of like, when is mobile going to cross that kind of threshold of like a significant percentage of site traffic? It kind of feels the same to me. The tools, you were just talking about tools. I think this maybe gets to what Ashley's asking. So I'm going to jump to Ashley's question real quick, which is there any way we can find out which of our content is linked to AI overview? That's what you were talking about, Ahrefs, Moz Pro. I lit that. What was the third one? Was it
SEMrush.
SEMrush? SEMrush.
Yeah.
Okay. SEMrush just got bought by Adobe, I think, too. Did they not? Yeah.
Yeah, for like $2 billion.
That'll be
Um,
an interesting thing to watch. So keep
yeah.
an eye on that one. And then we're just about to wrap up. I'm gonna dial into Mark's comment here, and I'm gonna take the answer. You guys can jump in if you want, but I don't think it's a real fair question for you to handle. And that is, do you think we can say with any confidence, 100% or less, that deciding to block these bots could potentially have a negative impact on discoverability and LLM results? It just strikes me that we'll all have to explain the implications of a decision like that, and that it's more complicated than simply keeping AI companies from hoovering up our data. Um, again, I think every organization's got to make that decision. In Nebraska, we decided, pretty much from the early days of ChatGPT being public, late 22, early 23, we were going to allow the data to be hoovered up because we're a public media entity. We produce our content for the public good. And so if we felt like, that was part of our mission to make our content accessible, and also just from the standpoint of garbage in, garbage out, right? So like we have good content. We much rather they hoover up good content so that the models get better and at least provide better service if you're asking questions about Nebraska. So that was a decision that Nebraska made to not block anything. I think it is undisputed that Google does punish you. Like they have different bots and things like that that they do punish you. And a lot of this is also just dependent on like you can tell them not to scrape your site. What we've found is a lot of them ignore that. Bijan talked about the robots.txt file. That's where you tell sites, hey, don't look at me. I don't want to be seen. And we know that most of the companies, Anthropic was one of the early ones. Like, they have Claude. Claude is the nice guy chatbot. And they, we had some instances where they were slowing our site down. The crawls were just grinding us to a halt. And doing server resets and things like that. So, and Anthropic is supposed to be arguably the good guys in the whole cohort of frontier model creators. So you can put that in there. That doesn't mean they're going to follow it. And so we, Nebraska, have just said like, we have mission reasons why we want to not go down that path. So I wanted to just put that out there to say like your organization's leadership, has to make that decision based on your own kind of missions and what you determine is the right answer. And PBS has a whole different perspective on this because they're national and they're protecting national brands, and it's just a different point of view from the local angle, I think. So I wanted to put that out there. Let's see. Thanks, Nick, for thanking us in Menominee. And let's see, Kristen, traffic and news items on pbswisconsin.org, that's really referred to by ChatGPT, has been steadily increasing. So you're seeing the kind of the same thing and isn't too far behind Bing. I should check Bing and just kind of see. Do you guys have any comments on Bing? I mean, we never think about it. Now we talk about Perplexity as the other search engine, but like, Bing is technically still like out there. For a hot minute. We thought it was going to be a thing, and then Microsoft kind of deflated like with their search and AI. But what do you have thoughts on that one?
On the paid side, we don't really do anything with Bing. We just see that Google dominates the majority of our searches, so we, spend our budget there. We experimented a little bit with it a long time ago, and it just didn't see nearly as many conversions or anything. So paid side, no.
Yeah, not really on the organic side as well. Honestly, we have paid attention to Bing a couple of times, and it's usually because they're like doing something weird on the technical element that's having like a noticeable impact for the website as a whole. So we mostly only pay attention to Bing when something like breaks. I will say they have like unlimited money, and I know they're doing a lot of interest. They're sort of mirroring Google with their integration of Copilot into Bing search results. We haven't really done much testing to determine like if it's higher quality than Google is. I feel like now I know Google just released Gemini 3, and people are saying Gemini 3 is like the best thing ever. So haven't done any comparisons there. But yeah, primarily focusing on Google for the most part.
Um, I I've always felt Bing has basically existed to keep antitrust officials away from Google. And now with Perplexity and ChatGPT Atlas and the other browsers, it's almost like it's not relevant. But to give them their due, like when ChatGPT came out, Google was on the back heel for a surprising amount of time. And for again a hot minute in early 23, we were talking about Bing as being the sort of cutting edge of search meets chatbot. It's just
Yeah.
like I said, it kind of deflated and went away. We should wrap up here. A favor for Chad. We'd love to have a copy of this chat. Oh, it will. The chat will come out in the. It will come out as a part of the materials we put on the PMI site for this to accompany this webinar. And then, so just a heads up on that. So we will definitely that'll be shared afterwards. Um, Mark says being in a program that was similar to Google Ad Grant, but that's shutting that down. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So cool. I have one last question for you, Paul, which is who knows when we'll be able to all get together to discuss this again, hopefully not a year from now, but sometime deeper into 2026. What do you guys recommend as like resources that people can like, follow to self-educate to stay up on this? Like what are the trade publications or sites that hit your top three list for keeping us educated?
The one that I check like daily is called Search Engine Roundtable. I'll drop the link in the chat. The guy who it's basically run by one person, Barry Schwartz, and it's basically sort of like it mirrors. It's like search news, so it's usually like up to the minute sort of news of what's going on in search. So he talks a lot about like the Google search algorithm, like if there's a core update or like new enhancements that have appeared in search results. But he also has increasingly covered AI integrations into search. It doesn't really have as much content focused on like if you want to look into like AI specific chatbots or like, ChatGPT news. This is not really covered. It's more sort of like the Google ecosystem, but there's enough sort of related content that it's really valuable. I also really like Kevin Indig. He has a newsletter called Growth Memo. I think is excellent. He does some really interesting deep dives into what's going on in the AI space and like optimizing for AI overviews and AI search results. I really like his content. And then Rand Fishkin he's sort of like the father of SEO. He's sort of outside of the SEO space at the moment. He operates a company called SparkToro, but he does like occasional great, like wonderful presentations about the state of search as a whole. And whenever they come out, they're just like I drop everything I do and I sort of like take it all in because he does some really wonderful high level analyses. But Emily, I don't know if you have other ones.
Those are all great. I mean, basic, I'm sure everyone knows Search Engine Land. I find super helpful. They're always giving some type of update. As well, I think just following Google in general's news, which may be an obvious one, but like listening to their summit about what they're rolling out, and then they're always dropping new announcements and such, gives you a real indication into what they're focusing on, which I find helpful even if they're not particularly transparent about how everything is happening. Um, those are two, and then actually shout out to Mike Houston Trela on our AI and product innovation team. But he got us onto this newsletter called the Neuron, which gives a lot of AI updates, not just search updates. But that's great just to keep tabs on because it gives a lot of insight.
Yeah, the Neuron is great, and actually, interestingly, they were at Adobe Max. They have typically been in the AI space, but acknowledging that AI is impacting creativity, they actually did a huge report this year on all of the AI announcements coming out of Adobe Max. So I thought that was pretty good. So yeah, the Neuron Daily has been on my reading list for a very long time. So yeah. Well, great suggestions. Thank you for those. We're going to wrap it up, I guess. Thanks for everyone who stuck with us to the end. I think this is the longest one we've done in many months. So, but again, not surprising. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Emily. We'll see you again in 2026. Thanks again to David and Amber for playing in the sandbox with me. Thanks to Nita and everybody. Have a safe, relaxing holiday season. Have a very happy, joyous New Year, and we will see you all in 2026.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Bye.